Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Destination Marketing Podcast. I'm your host, Adam Stoker. We've got a fun show for you today. This is actually an episode that I've been wanting to release for a long time. My guest on this episode is Will Wright from an organization called Destination Core based out of the UK. And Will and I have collaborated on building a product that we feel like is going to be really, really influential in the destination marketing industry. And we even talk about a couple of the pilot programs that we're running for that product right now. And really, it's a fun conversation. We had to wait for one of the clients that we mentioned needed to be able to allow us to publicly talk about the pilot that they're running for this program. And finally, we're able to actually release this episode and speak about it publicly. So really excited for that. I think you're going to love this conversation between me and Will. We talk about destination websites, destination marketing in general, and I think you'll find it to be really, really valuable. So thank you all for listening, and I hope you enjoy the show. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Destination Marketing Podcast. I'm your host, Adam Stoker. Got another great show for you today. A new friend of mine that I've had the opportunity to build a partnership with over the last several months. His name's Will Wright, and he's the managing partner of Destination Core. Will, thanks for being here today.
Yeah, hi, Adam. Thanks for inviting me on. I've been a long-time listener, so pleased to be able to, be here and actually appearing on the podcast.
Absolutely. And it's been kind of fun to get to know you because we started out with you reaching out from the podcast and having listened to the show. And I think from there, we just kind of explored different ways we could work together. And I would love to have you maybe from your side tell the story of how you found the podcast and what led you to reach out. And we'll kind of go from there.
Yeah, well, the initial introduction to your agency and to the podcast was through a client of ours, the Newcastle Gateshead Initiative.
That's right.
Who are one of the first DDPs, which stands for Destination Development Partnership in the UK, in our new tourism structure in the UK here. And you had been working on them with another pilot project that you had out and running, and they introduced us to you, and then you and I think struck up a sort of a partnership or a relationship then. And I'd said that I'd listened to a few podcasts that you'd done specifically around destination websites and where you thought they could be better and where they could improve with some of your other guests that you'd had on. And I think it went something along the lines of, I've listened to all the things that you've said, Adam, and I think that we can do something to address those. What do you think of that idea? And You being you, kind of said, yeah, well, show me what you can do. So that was how it all came about.
Absolutely. And it's been a lot of fun getting to know you since then. I want to let everybody else have the opportunity to get to know you. And as you know, as a listener, we're going to ask you a couple of questions that we ask everybody that comes on the show. So, Will, first of all, what's your dream destination? I know that you have a lot of clients that you have to be careful to not say the wrong one, but would love to hear your dream destination. If you could go anywhere in the world, where would it be?
I've always harbored dreams of going to New Zealand, actually. So the scenery there just looks absolutely stunning, and me and my wife have had that on our bucket list for a long time. But know that we need to do it. If we're going to do it properly, we want to spend a few weeks out there. So it's just balancing, finding that time with running a business and being able to take 3 or 4 weeks out of the business and leave everyone else to get on with it. So hopefully in the next few years, that's going to come to life.
Yeah, that's one of the challenges as an entrepreneur, right? Is you get to see all these opportunities out there, but you also know if I'm going to do it, I've got to do it right. And the alternative of that is, but I can't leave my business for that long, and that's where you run into kind of that conundrum. What was it about New Zealand that really drew you and your wife to want to go there?
Scenery. It just looks stunning, doesn't it? Like, mountains, coast. These are all the things that I value in somewhere I want to go and visit. So yeah, that just looks like you can get out in nature as well. I think a big part of what I kind of enjoy when I'm trying to switch off from work is being where no one else is.
Yeah.
And just being, in nature, listening to birdsong, listening to all the sounds of nature and feeling a bit more remote and cut off. I think that's me.
Well, it's funny. New Zealand's been my answer to that question for a very long time, and it's definitely on my list. I've got the same issue that you do of if I'm gonna go, I want to make sure I do it right, and I don't have the time to do it right now. So that's
Yeah,
just kind of how it shakes out for us, right?
yeah, exactly. But it'll be there, it'll be there one day.
Yep. Yep. So, Will, I want to also have you share maybe a favorite travel memory that you have. It could be from your childhood, adulthood, whatever you decide.
Yeah. Well, actually, there's two. I've thought about this because when I was going to come on the podcast, I knew you'd be asking this question. And there's two places. It relates a little bit to what we were just talking about and running a business and having to be there for the team the whole time. When I do get the chance to go on holiday, I really want to feel like I'm immediately into holiday mode. And there's two places that I go back to time and time again. One in the UK here is a holiday resort called Thorpe Ness, which is less than an hour from my doorstep.
Oh,
But it was
nice.
actually built as a original kind of holiday destination in the 1890s, I think. But it's got that feel. And the moment you arrive in Thorpe Ness, you immediately feel like you're on holiday. It's just immediate relaxation. So that's one that I really like to go to. And the other one is in Mallorca in Spain. And there's a great place in Mallorca called Porta Plensa. And it's a little cove in Mallorca and surrounded by mountains, but right next to the sea. And I know it really well. But every time I step off the plane into Porta Plensa, I immediately feel like I'm on holiday and I can relax. It's just such a special place to be. If you haven't been there, I would highly recommend that as a place to go. It really is a great destination.
I've heard great things about it, and no, I haven't been there. I've actually never been to Europe, and so I'm hoping that I get to the point in the next couple of years where I can go out to Europe. I used to, for some reason, I think it was due to lack of exposure, I didn't have a lot of desire to go to Europe, but now I've had all these people tell me about Italy and Spain and the UK and all these different places in Europe and the Mediterranean, and it's like, okay, I've got to go experience it. It's time.
Yeah. Yeah. No, if you do go, I know some great restaurants there.
Well, I like a good meal, so that's great. Well, Will, tell us a little bit, and you've kind of insinuated for those that haven't heard the accent yet. Will's not in the United States, right? He's in the UK. And Will, I want to have you share a little bit of the background of Destination Core, and maybe what led you there as well.
Yeah, sure. Been thinking a lot about this recently because we are undergoing a little bit of a rebranding exercise. And part of that rebranding exercise is trying to articulate the story of Destination Core a bit. So I feel like I might be well versed to answer this question. Really, the opportunity came for Destination Core. We're part of a bigger agency called the Jacob Bailey Group, who'd worked in place marketing in a variety of different formats for over 20 years, in branding, delivery of various online and offline campaigns. And we sort of saw a recurring theme with all of these places that we worked with. Sometimes they'd come and ask us, can you help us with a website as well as part of the branding project? And, kind of thought, well, most of what we do is quite repeatable here. But we also realised that there wasn't perhaps as much competition in that part of the market as there could be. And a lot of the feedback that we were getting from clients was not necessarily always positive around their experiences with sort of incumbent agencies that specialised in building destination websites. So we took on all of that feedback and thought we might be able to do a better job here, or we can at least, challenge the status quo. And we tried to build a business model that was all around the things that a lot of clients found frustrating. And I think that came back in the main to UX, so user experience and design, and that not being perhaps as good as it could be with a lot of these destination websites. There was quite a bit of feedback around customer service as well, and again, that not being perhaps quite as good as it could be. And then a whole load of things around the sort of technical side of the product and what I would call author experience, really. So the experience of people who are editing content on the website, publishing content on the website. And again, that perhaps being bit harder than it should be. And that was the inspiration. And we said, let's take all of these things that we've heard and see if we can do something which meets those needs. And that was the birth of the business, which was around 7 years ago now. So yeah, we've developed an awful lot in that time as well. When I think of what it was like 7 years ago and what our product was like then and what it's like now, it's a very different world.
Well, that's one of the hard parts of entrepreneurship is when you're starting something new or trying something new, you look back at version 1 and you're kind of like, oh man, I wish I could have a redo on this project or that project, because it takes time to perfect and refine the product, right? And so I think that's a really interesting part of your journey to look back over the last 7 years and say, look how much better we've gotten. But also looking at those first couple projects, I've shared that same thought on some of our earlier attempts too. One of the things that's really hard is when you have a business with a very specific vision and purpose, and you recognize a new product opportunity or a pivot for the business, or in your case, that websites are going to be a direction that you can spin off into its own business. It's hard to do because there's so much that you have to do in your existing business to take care of the clients and make sure that they don't feel like you're neglecting one part of the business for the other one. So I'm curious, what led you guys to recognize this is enough of an opportunity that we should chase it, as opposed to, hey, let's try a couple and see how it goes? Like, how did you guys know this was going to be a thing?
Well, I think I was just talking to a colleague about this just before we got on this on the podcast, actually, Adam. And I think, if I'm honest, we took a risk because in the early days we thought there's probably something here, but we thought let's give it a go and see how that lands. And then we did our first couple of projects, and we hadn't overly committed. You know, we sort of said, yeah, we think we're going to do this, but we've given ourselves a little bit of wriggle room to back out if it didn't all go well, I think, because we were being supported by the wider agency. But the first couple of projects landed well, and we got some really good feedback. And that then led to, I think, one of the things which I've been really proud of as we've developed our business, which is being incredibly open to feedback. So we did those first couple of projects, and we were really honest with the clients when we took them on and said, you know what, there might be a few things that are not quite right here, but we want you to tell us, because if you don't tell us, we can't learn. And that has been one of the founding principles of the business, to be really open to feedback from our clients, from the wider industry, from anyone that's prepared to give us feedback, and using that feedback to adapt, evolve, and improve the product moving forward. And I'm incredibly proud that we are still doing that to this day. And I think we've maintained the attitude of, we want to hear what our clients think about what we're doing, and then we want to respond to that in a really positive way.
Great. And at this point now, 7 years in, how many sites have you guys done?
Yeah, so we currently look after nearly 45 websites at the moment. Proud to say that we have lost one or two clients over the years, but actually our retention rate has been incredibly high. But we also have got our reporting dashboard product, and we've got close to 90 different clients on that reporting dashboard as well. So yeah, 90 different destinations that we work with, and we're getting feedback from every day.
Wow, I love that. And one of the things that is inevitable when you're breaking into a new business category is you start to recognize competitors that you may have been a little bit naive to, or didn't realize existed, at least, or were the size that they were when you jumped in. For me, that experience was when we tried to expand our agency outside of Utah. I had never heard of MMGY. I had never heard of Miles Partnership. I'd never heard of Madden Media. And these were some really big, established, and very talented organizations that we found ourselves going up against when we expanded outside of Utah. And so I'm wondering, for you, how aware were you of SimpleView and Tempest and some of the other website companies that are out there that have been serving the industry for years and years? And What made you feel like you had the ability to offer something that had additional value beyond what they've been offering to the marketplace?
Yeah. I mean, we were aware of all of those when we decided to launch the product. We'd done a bit of market research and decided we'd find out what the competition was and what we're up against. But we were really buoyed by that sort of feedback that we'd taken from the industry that told us that maybe there was an opportunity and maybe there was a bit of a gap in the market. But I think what we deliberately tried to do was to offer something different, to not try and be, oh, we'll be the same again, but to actually say, we are an alternative, but we're an alternative who's doing these things. And I'm a big believer that you get back what you put out. And we deliberately tried to make our offering boutique, if that's the right word. I don't know if that is, but, a more niche service. One of the things that I think that we do well, I would never want to change in the business, is to try and have the leaders in the business, or the decision makers in the business, stay really close to our clients. And to do that, we've got to stay. We can't be huge, because if we've got hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of clients, I can't speak to all of those clients on a personal level. But with the size we are now and the volume of clients that we've got now, I can speak to all of our clients, and our technical lead can speak to all of our clients, and our senior project manager can speak to all of our clients. And that's the way that we can then say, we'll listen to that industry feedback and we can actually change the business from the top. So those decisions come from me and our technical lead and our senior project manager, because we're listening to our clients. So it's actually, that was one of the key things that I think we recognized the size of the challenge, and there were some big incumbents that we were trying to challenge, but to not really directly set ourselves against them, to say to clients, if this is what you value, if you value being able to deal with the people who are making the decisions, if you value the design and the UX being the top priority for your destination website, if you value that customer service, that's where where we're going to win, and might be different to the others. So yeah, really interesting. But competition is really healthy. In my view, I wouldn't want to be in a situation where we didn't have competition, because we would become complacent. Yeah,
100%. So one of the things that I love about kind of the opportunities that we've had to work together, I'm a big believer that success is actually a really crappy teacher, and failure teaches you so much more than success does. And one of the things about your model that I found interesting when I met you was that you have kind of your core product, but you don't try to own every part of the experience and thus exclude other opportunities that destinations could have. For example, one of the things that we started talking about at the very beginning was we had built this AI chatbot experience for some destinations, and we were piloting it and seeing if it was going to work. What we ultimately discovered, even though we tried to launch it as one of the modular add-ons that you offered to your clients, we discovered that if we wanted to do this, we were going to have to essentially become an AI company, not an agency, because it was going to require so much development and so much optimization. And we recognized that there were the mind trips out there and the guide geeks out there that were probably a little bit more sophisticated than the product that we had built. But we learned that we worked well together, I think, in that process, right? And so that was a really cool part of the experience. And I think that led us ultimately to this new partnership that we've created that has been much more effective, that we both feel confident that we can deliver on. And that's this new concept of a owned media first website that feels a lot more like a streaming experience that a customer would have in a Netflix or an Amazon Prime or it's funny, I'm not even sure if those are the same in the UK or if they're different. But we definitely have tried to say, okay, well, all these other websites have been optimized for bottom of funnel performance. And what that leads to in a lot of cases is you just get a glorified directory that's designed to generate as many clicks for the stakeholder as possible without taking into consideration, well, wait a second, what's the actual purpose of our website? Are we just trying to get metrics that we can share with our stakeholders to show that we're being successful, or the illusion of relevance, as I like to call it? Or are we truly trying to inspire travel? And this new concept that you and I have developed together is much more centered around if the destination's purpose is inspiration and they're creating content that inspires, we need a website environment that's going to be much more conducive to the type of inspiration that we need to have, and it's not just a glorified directory. And so I'd love to have you talk about from your side of the table when we originally had this conversation, what led you to say, yeah, let's give it a try, and ultimately where it's at today, where we've got several pilot projects in the process right now. It's no secret that the advertising agency model is changing. I've talked about it a lot on this show, and it's no different for me and my organization. A year and a half ago, I went to my team and I said, we have got to change the way we think. And we've got to change the way we're valued for our clients. We can no longer be valued for what we do because tactics are continuing to become commoditized and even achievable by AI tools. And so we've been working really, really hard to make that conversion from tacticians to strategists, and our team's done an incredible job of that. And in that process, we've had a lot of conversations with different destinations about what type of projects they need help with. Instead of doing the whole agency of record thing where we take all your media spend and all your different tactics that you're doing, instead, we want to solve a specific strategic problem that destinations have. We've had one destination that had us build a corporate partnerships program for them, and we're in the process of that right now. We had another destination that really wanted us to build a Reddit strategy for them. We had one destination that said, we want you to solve LinkedIn for us. And we audited and built an entire LinkedIn strategy that's currently being executed on. And most recently, we had a destination reach out and say, we just need help understanding where and how we should use AI across our organization and in our marketing activities. And we're working on that, and we're getting that finalized right now with that destination. So what we're finding is that there's all these problems destinations have that historically haven't felt like my marketing agency is the person to solve this or the organization to solve this. And that's created a lane where we're working with destinations of all shapes and sizes to help them solve these narrow strategy projects that maybe have been sitting on the shelf needing to be done for a very long time. If you have a project like that you need solved, a problem you need solved that you haven't yet been able to get to, let me and my team at Brand Revolt help you solve that problem, build a strategy, and execute on the solution in such a way that it changes your organization for the better forever. We feel like we can do a fantastic job of this. We've modified our model to be able to do that, and our team of strategists does an incredible job putting these things together for our destinations that we work with, and would love the opportunity to put it together for you. So if you have something like that, hit me up, adam@thebrandrevolt.com, and we'll get you set up.
Well, I think you hit on something which I've always thought should be the center of every destination website, and the bit where they can win, and that's be that source of inspiration. The bit that every destination DMO website should be able to offer is a completely unique look at what makes their destination unique. And that's always been something which I've felt really strongly about right from day one. When we, if we're honest, we were building directory websites because that's what the industry wanted. And that's how everyone felt comfortable. But still trying to encourage clients to be that, you've got to be the inspiration. You're not going to compete with Airbnb or Booking.com or anything like that. So, that when you and I were talking, Adam, and you sort of said that you felt the same way, and your take on it, I guess, was through the owned media space, through entertaining first, having podcasts, having TV series, having really good, strong video content that actually provides that inspiration. And I think, it perhaps got us thinking in a slightly different way, but what really struck me, and I thought this could work, is that I felt, well, actually what Adam's talking about here is the same thing that we're talking about, in that inspire first. That's the core purpose of a DMO website. If you can get people to feel like this is the place that's going to fulfill my dreams for the next trip that I want to go on, and offer me exactly what I'm after from my travel experience, then that's the thing that sits at the core of it. And I think that was the bit that got me thinking, we can adapt what we're doing here. And just to roll back a little bit onto something that you said, Adam, about not being scared of failure right at the outset, there is that we've had our fair share of failures, but I think you've got to understand what you're good at. And I've always thought what we're really good at is putting the user first. And that's what's really evolved in 7 years to the point we are now, where people are seeking travel inspiration in completely different ways. And a lot of the time that isn't done in a traditional search. That can be done through watching a piece of content on YouTube, listening to a podcast, looking at stuff on social, short videos, all of that kind of stuff. That's how people are getting that information now. And quite often that doesn't involve a Google search at all anymore. It still will for a lot of people. So I think that was kind of like where I thought, this is the idea that Adam's got, and the combination of your own media first approach and our kind of inspiration first approach, I guess, was where it felt like a really good fit.
Yeah. Well, and every project in theory sounds great, right? When we have the idea and it's like, oh, this could work, both of us got really excited, but then we've had a couple opportunities now to put it into practice. So I'm curious, especially when you're building something new, reality hits when you actually have to build it for a client instead of for a hypothetical client, right? So we've been going through this process with Play Golf Myrtle Beach, who was our first destination client to really give this a try. What was it like when you actually put pen to paper and it's like, okay, now this is real and we have to make it happen? What was it like to try to build that?
I get the fun bit of the job more often than not. So the technical challenges come for our technical lead. And if our technical lead, Jay, is listening to this, he'll be nodding along. What I often ask of him is this theoretically possible? Could we do this thing? And he will go, theoretically, that's possible. And then, we get the client to sign on the dotted line, and then you go, right, you said that was theoretically possible. We've now got to actually build that thing, and we've got to make that work. And a lot of that comes with trial and error. And even as we've been going through this process with Play Golf Myrtle Beach, things that we assumed were going to work. Even just as simple as how are we going to pull that podcast content in? And we said, well, the research we've done suggests we can do it this way. Maybe that comes through their Spotify channel. And then you get into the nuts and bolts of it and you go, that isn't going to work. That's not possible. We need to think of a different way of doing this now. But those can be fun challenges as well. But ultimately, with anything like that, when you come to those technical challenges, I think we're always trying to balance it out with what does that look like on the front end for the user? What's the experience for them? What's the experience for the content editor as well? How easy is it for people to upload the content to get it to display in the way they want? And you're constantly making compromises as you get into the nitty gritty of that. But if I'm completely honest, that's the stuff that gets me out of bed every day. I love those challenges. And when we're doing something where I think, oh, we've really changed the game with that, or we've really done something that's going to really have a powerful impact for the client or for the user or for the destination as a whole. That's the stuff that I really love. But like I say, I get the fun bit because I just get to talk the theory.
Well, I think one of the things that made this easier, and easy is a relative word, so I don't want to say easy, but one of the things that made it a little more, I guess, realistic for us is that Play Golf Myrtle Beach has already built a very content-centric marketing strategy. They have multiple shows. They've got one called Breaking Par with Charlie Reimer, where they've got this guy that's been in the golf world forever, and he's trying to kind of come back and get back to being excellent at golf. And they've got the Bryan Bros that have come in and done several series with them. They've got St. Andre Golf. So some of the biggest influencers in golf come in and create content with them. And the only place that they were really displaying this content was on YouTube. And so they've got this directory style website. And when people come to the website, they don't even really get connected to the content that they've invested so much money in creating. And, one of the things Kyle talked about on the webinar that we put together a few weeks ago is that the length of engagement with somebody watching a YouTube video versus the length of time people are spending on the website is not even in the same ballpark. And YouTube has so much more staying power. And so the idea was, well, you're building all this content. let's put it into the website so that we're actually giving people a reason to stay on the website. If that's where the engagement and time spent is happening, let's try to put it where the actual directory that obviously is still on there because they have stakeholders to support, where that directory is, and now we can kind of blend those two experiences together. And so I think it's important for us as we talk about this product that we've built together to also say who's not a good candidate for this. And so if there's somebody that's doing bottom of funnel performance marketing and really hasn't invested in generating excellent content for their destination to engage and inspire potential visitors, they're probably not the right fit for this, because this is definitely much more conducive to somebody that's taken a content first approach.
Yeah. It's that age-old question, what came first, the chicken or the egg? So, I'm a real strong believer you need to have the right idea around content first for this to work. But that doesn't mean that you shouldn't start doing content first now. And I think one of the really important things and this is a change in technology as well, but what it's brought back to me is that I think, CMS, everyone knows that you need a CMS to run your website. But when you actually break that down, what does CMS stand for? Content Management System. And what has happened in the past is that Content Management System has been used to display content on your website. But that's actually completely the wrong approach. A content management system needs to be a place where you can house all of your content and then distribute it. There is a flip side to that as well, because you're not going to be able to house your social media content on your website and distribute that out, but you can pull your social media content into the website as part of the journey. And I think that's where there's a bit of a mind shift for all of this, because I've got this amazing content. Could be a great article I've written about how to spend the best amount of time in this area, get the most out of a rainy day, best things to do with your dog in that destination, whatever it might be. And that content exists, and I'm just displaying that on my website. Well, hang on a sec. There's a whole load of people who are searching for that in AI overviews in Google, in ChatGPT, in wherever else it might be, in Gemini, Perplexity. Why shouldn't you surface that content there? You need to surface that content there because that's giving you wider distribution. Then you've got all this great content that you just described for Play Golf Myrtle Beach. That exists in YouTube in a silo in its own right. Somebody watches that content on YouTube, and then what happens at the end of a YouTube video? A next bit of suggested content comes in, probably not even related to your brand. And suddenly you're watching that, and that's taking you off into another brand. Could even be another destination, could be something else. If you can get all of that content and find ways to, one, house it on your website in your content management system, which is going to distribute it out into all the places where people might be searching. Or on the flip side, if you can't do that, use your website to bring that content in. So when people are on your website, they're getting the complete picture from user-generated content, how people are engaging on social, those kind of real-world, real-life experiences, alongside this great curated content of your video and your articles and all the great stuff that you've got. That's surely a better place than everything existing in a silo. And for me, that's a big change where I think people are more they're more susceptible to that conversation now because of what's happened with AI. Because now people are realizing that I need to do more with this content. I need to get it out to more places rather than just existing on the website. And I think there's a bit of a conversation around a trend towards our website's even going to be relevant. Well, they're going to be relevant if you think of it as a content management system and not as a website. The website is just one place where you put that content.
I think that's an important kind of segue to this discussion. Is there's a lot of people questioning, is a website worth the investment if AI is going to continue to change the consumer experience and evolve the way that it has? I'm a big believer that if you've built your website correctly and I know there's some technical things you have to do, like adhere to schema principles, for example. And I do think earned media, which we haven't really addressed here, nor do I feel like we need to in this conversation. Earned media is still a massive component of how things are showing up in the LLMs. But the volume of content you have on your website absolutely influences the number and different types of searches with AI that you're going to show up for. And I think we need to start looking at our website as opposed to this directory that allows us to send metrics to our stakeholders, which a lot of those metrics are even competitive with the stakeholders in the first place and cause a lot of problems on that end. That's a soapbox I won't get all the way onto. I'll just allude to it here. If our website is truly meant to house all of our content and serve as inspiration, the volume of content we're placing on the website will impact how people can be inspired through the LLMs. And I think that's a really important mindset shift for people right now is I think right now we're still, a lot of people are still trying to send metrics to the stakeholders as opposed to truly leveraging their website as an inspiration tool, including what's going to show up in the LLMs. So I think that's a big mental shift that needs to take place for a lot of people in our industry. And if you really want to be as visible as possible, content is going to be much more valuable than it has been in the past.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And I think, one of the key metrics that any destination in today's world needs to be measuring themselves on is how many questions are asked about my destination and how effective am I answering those questions. Like, that should be the only metric. Because if somebody's asking a question and you're not the person answering that question, somebody else is taking control of your narrative, then the bits that you're talking about at the bottom of the funnel, where it's, how good am I at sending people to the businesses that I represent, you're not even going to get to that part of the conversation if you're not really, really good at answering the questions that people are asking. And that's where it comes down to that inspirational content, because everything now, in the most basic terms, can come down to an FAQ. I have asked a question, it's this, and it could be something really specific, like, what's the best time to where's the best thing that I can do on a rainy Tuesday afternoon with my dog in this destination, something really specific. If you've got a bit of content which answers that, then you're going to be the person, you're going to be the organization that answers that question. Then you're likely to be able to get that conversion at the bottom end of the funnel. And you're then going to be able to say to your businesses, oh, we were this effective. And you think about that specificity. Oh, hang on. Let me roll back.
Specificity.
Thanks, yeah. of that particular question, then that is the ultimate conversion, isn't it? Because you've probably said there's 2 or 3 things that you can do to answer that very, very specific question. And that's going to mean that somebody then visits one of those 3 businesses. That's much better than being general and going, oh, there's 500 things that you could do to answer, because that's no good to a user. To somebody, potential visitor, is it? Because they're like, well, I'm now overwhelmed with answers. I want your expertise as a destination to tell me, what are the things that I should do.
Yeah, I think this is one of the biggest opportunities that's out there in the destination marketing space today. And that's the fact that when we created all of these directory style websites, we never actually got access to the questions people had when they were on the site for the most part. Now, with Mindtrip, GuideGeek, Satisfy Labs, and some of the other organizations who are building these LLM tools that destinations can put on their websites, we're going to have visibility now into the questions people have. And I think what we're going to find is those questions are so much more inspiration-based than they are bottom of funnel decision-making based. And what I would do as a destination, if I had one of those technologies implemented on my website, is the questions that are being submitted, that's my content roadmap. That's how I decide what my next YouTube video is going to be. That's how I decide what my next podcast episode is going to be. And now you can create the perpetual cycle of value that when they're on your website asking questions, you're building content that not only is going to feed the questions they're going to get in the LLMs when they're asking the LLMs, but also the questions they're going to ask on your website. And I feel like we can actually build a much more relevant inspiration engine for our customers by leveraging those tools. Yes, it's great that customers are getting the answers when they're on the site, but more importantly, we're now getting the roadmap for what content we can create to provide the maximum value to the visitor to the site.
Yeah, exactly that. And, ultimately, I think when you mentioned the webinar that we did, that Kyle from Play Golf Myrtle Beach on, he had a great description. He said, everybody wants that guy, their guy, didn't he? That's how he described when somebody's going to Myrtle Beach, they want to be able to play golf. They want to be able to say, where's the best course? What's my don't miss? And that's ultimately what a destination website should do really, really well, better than anyone else. It should be that friend that's making the personal recommendations to you as an individual. Say, oh, I know you really well. We've known each other for years. I know you'll love doing this thing, or you'll love doing this thing. Or if you want to try something different, here's the different thing that you should try. That's where you've got that, almost like that, that lovable uncle that lives in the area that you've gone to visit. And he said, you're only here for 3 days. Here's how you're going to get your best out of your 3 days. That's what a really good destination website needs to do. And that is all about listening first, 2 ears, 1 mouth. And then when somebody's asked that question, you've given them the answer that they're really after, that really means something to them.
Absolutely. Well, I think to wrap, Will, I want to be very clear with our listeners. What is this product that we've built, right? And the way I would describe it is this is a content-centric content management system that we've created specifically for destination marketing organizations. And that involves, if destinations have created content and done a really good job of building different shows, video content, audio content, blogs, newsletters, all of that kind of stuff, this system organizes it in such a way that it's very easy for the user and very inspirational. I want to know, if you were going to add to that, Will, what would you say about the product that we've built?
Yeah, I think 2 things that I would add to that. 1, built for today. And by that, I mean in all the technology that, that we use, and all the things that we can hook into in terms of schema and making sure you're getting visibility in search results and LLMs, all that kind of thing. And the second bit that I'd like to add to that is highly personalized. That doesn't mean you have to create a user account. That just means the experience when you're on the sites feels incredibly personalized to you. And there are a number of different tools we do to bring that to life, but it doesn't have to mean that somebody's a logged in user. We can do that in session-based visits as well. So yeah, I think that would be the 2 things for me: built for today and highly personalized.
Great. And excited to have Play Golf Myrtle Beach on board, who's well into the process. And in fact, we're through design and into the development phase at this point, especially the point of publication of this episode. And then we're just getting started with Providence, Rhode Island, and we have several other destinations that we'll be onboarding in the next couple of months. So really excited to work on this project with you, Will. It's been a lot of fun to have our 2 organizations working together. Really proud of it. If people want to learn more about you, Will, or Destination Core, what's the best way for them to reach out to you and get a hold of you?
Yeah, on email, will@destinationcore.com, or I'm on LinkedIn as well. So it's Will Wright, Destination Core as a business. Or if anyone wants to call me, the number's on the website.
Awesome. Will, I really appreciate you coming on and sharing your expertise with us today.
Great. Thanks, Adam. Really enjoyed it.
Awesome. And thanks everybody for listening. If you enjoyed today's episode, please don't forget to leave us a rating or a review. It helps us continue to bring you amazing guests like Will. Thanks everybody, and have a great week. Ever since we did CMO Jam at Esto last year, my inbox has been full of people saying, okay, when's the next one? When are you going to do the CEO Jam? When are you going to do Digital Marketer Jam? So on and so forth. And it's something that we've put a lot of thought into. And after seeing the success of the CMO Jam product last year, we wanted to make it more frequent. We wanted to make it more scalable. And we've been working on a solution to that. Right now, I'm looking for CMOs who want to participate in the CMO Jam that's upcoming, probably in the next couple of months. And I'm also looking for people who would like to be a part of additional roundtables. So CMO Jam was where I had 10 CMOs around a table, and we talked about the issues facing our industry and how the destination marketing industry can move forward from a marketing perspective. If you're a CEO and would like to be part of a CEO roundtable, hit me up, adam@thebrandrevolt.com. Same Same if you're a CMO, or if you're part of another group that you'd like to do a roundtable sitting around with your different peers and have me moderate a discussion that captures really good value for the entire industry, something that everybody in the industry needs to hear. I really would love to have all of you participate in some of these roundtables that we're putting together, and I'm even working on something that's going to be more fun, bigger, and more opportunity for you all to connect with your peers in these types of roundtable settings. We're all going to learn from each other. It's the only way we survive this thing, is we all need to work together, help each other move forward, and build for the future, build an industry that's sustainable for the future. And there's too much one-to-many discussion going on. I want many-to-many discussion going on. And the way to do that is through these roundtables. If you want to participate, hit me up, adam@thebrandrevolt.com. We'll set up a roundtable. We'll get you involved in some of the ones that we already have planned. And I think it's going to be a great way for us to continue to push this industry forward.